call the meeting to order. It's now 5:22. 3 trustees are present, 2 are not here. Trustees Trustee Manor and Trustee Dupra and myself are here today. So we have a quorum, so we can start the meeting today. What's on the agenda? Mary.
On the agenda is
if we had any tax exemption requests for the aged, which we don't. They have all been approved, all the ones that have been received.
Okay. So no additional tax exemption for this year, so that's okay. Anything else?
I don't have an agenda other than that I believe that the board wants to discuss the fire contract with the town of Champaign.
Okay.
Mr. O'Neill indicated he wanted to bring that up.
Okay, and Mr. Trustee O'Neill can't be here to this meeting tonight. Who would like to take the lead on this, or who would like to discuss this?
I went to the meeting last night, to the town board meeting, and after discussing it at length, and Leo reiterated that they cannot amend their contract by law. They cannot amend the contract that has been submitted by the town board. So the ball's in our court here, whether or not we want to accept this contract for 1 year or for $12,000. I don't have any problem with the contract for a 1-year contract, but I wouldn't want to commit the village in lieu of the fact that we are going to that for $75,000 or $70,000 plus for a tanker, which is used primarily for mutual aid and outside the village. I'd like to be able to renegotiate this contract in 12 months. And also the payments will be done. We can have Leo said that if we wanted to, we could have the payments quarterly, semi-annually, or annually as it was done prior. We asked for it up front, and he says that, and I think Henry's going to research this, and he didn't feel as though the town is in a position to or can legally pay for services not rendered.
There was some discussion on that point. Mr. Bather brought up the fact that we pay for insurance in advance and that sort of thing. Primarily the request was that since they could not work the $18,000 request into their budget, that we provide, or that they would provide us with a $12,000 payment up front, so that we would have that money advanced to accommodate our budget. They feel that they really can.
Was the point discussed that maybe they can pay us ahead of time and give us $12,000 in January?
No, they won't. They won't pay anything in advance. So,
but I thought
he will accommodate quarterly payments, where that for the first quarter of '89 they would pay
$3,000 in March,
at the end of
$3,000 in June,
Exactly.
in September, and the end of the year.
Yes. I'm not sure that quarterly payments are necessary. I think semi-annually would be effective for us.
Okay. Accounting-wise, Administrator Ray, which one would you suggest, quarterly or semi-annual payments?
I'd recommend semi-annually, but again, I haven't discussed that with our SIN, so I think it'd be an extra step in accounting.
Right. So, Trustee Cyril Manor, as the Fire Commissioner for the village, she'd recommend that,
I recommend that
we go for the 12 months.
12 months, $12,000.
Just for the 12 months, and then we're going to renegotiate with them
Yes.
for the coming calendar year 1990.
Yes.
Okay. And 6 months,
We will get half of the
$12,000 in June,
$12,000.
and the other.
I'd like to see us try to accommodate our budgeting procedure as well, and we adopt our budget. And I would recommend that rather than having a contract that we have to put together every year or every 2 years, that we go with an indefinite contract, and then each year annually just add an addendum to that that reflects the amount of the contract that we're going to get. And then as our costs go up, then we can request additional money, and once the department becomes balanced out and our expenses are lower, and the town may feel that it's reasonable to lower the amount of that contract and just negotiate that one aspect each year, but have one indefinite contract. And then also have it so that when we discuss that addendum, that all of that has to be finalized, that agreement has to be finalized before our budget is finalized each April.
Yeah, I think one of the causes of this problem is that the village of Rouses Point has a different fiscal year than the town of Champlain. Ours is from June to June, and theirs is from January through December, which is why in that limbo of 6 months from June to December, there's a lot of things going on, and it just doesn't jive with each of the municipality's budget. Yeah, so that means we have to prepare our budget, or approve the budget again, Mary?
Budget has to be approved by May 1st.
By May 1st, so that we have to prepare our budget between probably January and January, February, March, April.
Public hearings usually in March and April.
So in that case, then, if we have to negotiate some kind of a contract with the town of Champlain, that negotiation should go on before our budget year. And
Yes.
Trustee
That would
Lynn
be in
Duper.
January, February, and March, prior to the finalization of our budget. And that would be well within the parameters of the town budget, which they need our specifications or our budget request in September so that they can finalize their budget in December.
So they prepare their budget in September,
Well, their budget is already finalized and it's been submitted to the county.
right, for this year.
For this
So,
year.
For this year, yeah.
So if we begin negotiations in January of this year for the fiscal year of 1990 for the town of Champlain, if we begin negotiations in January of '89 and complete negotiations by April of '89 so that we know what part this is going to pay in our budget, we can tell them what we expect from their budget well within the time requirements of
Right.
September of '89.
But again,
Not only that, their board will have already acted to adopt that figure, and so that they'll fully know what their tax rate's going to have to be in order to accommodate that in September. when they
but
start
we're
working
still
on
going to
it.
have a fire contract though for the calendar year, not
Yes.
not for the village's
Yes.
fiscal year.
Yes, the fire contract will be for the calendar year, which is the same as the town's budget year,
If it their
That-
fiscal.
fiscal year.
That way, we'll have 9 months of lead time to know exactly what the next fire contract is going to be, and there won't be any of this last minute thing that happened this year. It's one of those situations that came up, people forgot things, mistakes were made, but if we do it this way, we can avoid it.
Trustee Cyril Matter, do you think they'd be amenable or agreeable to this process of negotiating before April, before June, before the start of our fiscal year? Do you think the town will agree to this?
I don't know why they wouldn't. I think they would, because they seemed quite agreeable, or at least they accepted, the discussion last night and seemed receptive to the idea of doing it this way.
What I put together is some amendments that I feel would be effective to the contract. What I'd like to do is just read those over and correspondingly read what's in the existing contract so you can see what changes we're making. Or if you'd like me to do that, I'll be glad to.
Yes.
The existing contract is for 1987-88. And Section 4 reads as follows. In consideration of furnishing of such aid and services as above described, the town will pay annually to the said village as follows. For the year 1987, $12,000. For the year 1988, $12,000. Said amount shall be paid at the end of each year, payable within 30 days of the rendering of a bill for such services. The village of Rouses Point shall be subject to the provisions of law allowing same, allocate and provide 30% of such amount to its voluntary fire company.
Can you hold theirs right there, please? I have a question. So we have received the $12,000 for this calendar year then?
We've submitted a bill to the town for that.
We have not received the monies yet?
No, not as yet. but
And
the bill
if
has
we
been
go with
submitted.
this new proposal here, that means that by June of this year we can receive another $6,000.
Yes, okay, let me just cover that.
Okay.
In replace of section 4 that's in the existing contract, I would recommend the following. In consideration of furnishing of such aid and services above described, the town will pay semi-annually after the end of each 6-month period 50% of the annual negotiated amount of the contract. Said annual negotiated amount shall be attached to this contract in the form of an addendum prior to the final adoption of the village's annual fiscal budget. Said annual amount shall be in effect for the succeeding calendar year to the date of its adoption.
Excuse me, Bill, a question or point here. The first statement there, can you just clarify that, please? It says, in the form of an addendum prior to the final adoption of the village's annual fiscal budget. What do you mean by that?
Each year, we would sit down before our budget is adopted and work out an arrangement of how much the contract would be for with the town. We would go to them and say, in the succeeding year, we anticipate buying a new tanker, a new pumper, building an extension out to the firehouse. Therefore, we would like to increase the amount of the fire contract by X amount of money.
So the amount will change, and that will be the addendum to the contract.
That would be an addendum to the contract
which we
each
will not,
year.
we're not going to revise the whole contract
No,
every year or so.
we just have one indefinite contract, and we wouldn't have to sign new contracts each year.
Okay.
Just add an addendum for the amount.
And then it says here, the addendum prior to the final adoption of the village's annual fiscal budget. Should we mention that day or when the village adopts
Well,
the budget?
As Mr. Letourneau pointed out last night, we should have been fully aware of their town budget because it was properly posted in all the newspapers. Each year, the actual date that the village's budget is adopted is going to change from year to year. So if we put that in here and just say by the date of final adoption, there's going to be full notice
because
and
the
everything.
date can change every
The
year
date's gonna
because
change.
the Monday night may fall on a different time. Okay, thank you.
Also, Section 8 of the contract, the current contract reads, this agreement shall continue for a period of 2 years from the first day of January 1987 unless sooner terminated by mutual agreement in writing. And the amendment to that I feel would be beneficial is this agreement shall continue indefinitely unless sooner terminated by either party in writing. 6 months prior notification of pending termination shall be provided to both parties and Montgomery Hose-Hook and Ladder Company No. 1 Incorporated. Since they're providing the service, we obviously want to let them know what's happening in the negotiations and how we're involved in all of that.
But they don't sign the contract, or the village will sign the contract.
Well, they will sign the contract.
The Montgomery Hose-Hook and Ladder.
Yes, they will sign the contract that specifies that, yes, they're willing to provide the service to the town. I mean, that has to happen by law. And that's why we want to keep them fully aware of what's happening all along the way. The last thing, which I would add to the contract after we make these 2 amendments to the contract, the last item would be the actual addendum for 1989 and only 1989. The town will pay the village of Rouses Point for the calendar year 1989 the sum of $12,000 for fire protection services described in this fire contract. The village of Rouses Point shall, subject to provisions of law allowing same, allocate and provide 35% of such amount to its voluntary fire company. So everything that's in the existing contract would be covered in the new contract. The only difference would be that there would be more of a check system to make sure that if you get another administrative change in the village, or if the board changes here, or if the board changes in the town, that there's an automatic mechanism there to prevent us from running into the problem that we ran into this year. That's the major change. And then it makes changing of the amount a little easier. That amount still has to be negotiated, but it's just that one aspect, and it's an addendum, and it has to happen prior to both fiscal years, the village fiscal year and the town fiscal year, so that everybody knows everything right up front,
Way ahead of
how much money is going to happen, how much money is going to be requested.
I think this is a very, very reasonable addendum. Any comments from?
Right now, it's happening actually just prior to the town's budget, and then the village kind of has to fall in behind, whereas if we do it this way, it will be before both actual budgets so then everybody knows what the figures will be.
Yes, as it stands now, had everything gone the way that nature was taking its course originally, Mr. Batha had anticipated an $18,000 contract this year. He was advised by the fire chief that the contract did not come up this year, so he scratched that out of the budget. Okay. Had he not taken that out of the budget, we would have allocated $18,000 in the budget come this time of year if the dates had passed, which with a change of administration and the change of board members, etc., with people not notifying people as they needed to be notified, then very conceivably we would have had $6,000 in revenue,
Shortfall.
which we would not have received.
So for this fiscal year, June of '88 to May 31st of '89, we only expect $12,000 then from the town of Champlain.
Well,
Because
it's difficult to look at it in those terms because for 1988 we received $12,000. Now, if you want to put dates on that, then we received $6,000 from January 1 to June of '88. Then we received another $6,000 from July to December of '88. And now with another contract, if we sign a new contract with the town, then we will receive $6,000 from January 1 to June of '89, and then we will already have $6,000 allocated from July to December of '89.
But on our budget, we only have $12,000 for our fiscal year.
Yes.
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 But if we renegotiate during January, February, and March of '89 with the town, then for the fiscal year of the town 1990, then we will know when we make our budget for '89-90 how much revenue we can expect from the town for the second half of
For the second half.
our fiscal year.
It will not be subject to hopes and wishes anymore.
So that means-
Expectations, there'll be real numbers that we're working with.
That means
No,
then
exactly.
that the town will have to come to the village board to renegotiate the fire contract for 1990 calendar year for the town.
We ran into a little bit of problem this year with that, because everybody was expecting somebody else to go to them to negotiate. I think we need to focus on the fact that we're providing a mechanism to make sure that negotiation takes place, regardless of who comes to who.
Okay.
And
So both parties will be notified that a negotiation has to take place before the
absolutely.
adoption of the new
And as we
budget.
negotiate that on an annual basis, we can look more at real cost rather than on a 2-year basis of estimates. We can look at real cost, and if it happens every year, there's never going to be that point where somebody says, does it come up this year? I don't think so, and accidentally bypass it.
It'll be on our cheat sheets, actually,
Yes.
which
Uh.
is what we put it with an asterisk if we want to know that that's what we're going to get.
Trustee
The town was very accommodating last night to the extent that they could be. They're locked into a situation. Their budget is finalized, and we made a request of them. I think they all recognized that it was a legitimate request. The timing was just didn't work out.
Well, I'm glad to hear that they thought it was a legitimate request with our information backing it up.
Because they didn't, they didn't dispute the fact that $18,000 was an unreasonable request. It's just that the timing was off. It's just nothing they could do.
Any request other than the 12,000 was
Yeah.
unreasonable at this point in time.
And
So
probably
they
they think
locked into
that they don't have the flexibility that we do in
Yeah.
preparing our budget. Any other comments about this? Just want to check with you, Mary. How about the timing of all these things? Are we about in line with adopting the budget and
Well, we're
getting
going
the
to start on the
contracts?
budget. I talked with Tom, who's, I believe, going to be budget officer again this year. And I talked with him, and this month, we're going to get our sheets out, hopefully, and
So you're gonna start
Yes,
working on that
We're going
budget.
to get started and get
Okay.
everybody to the department chair people and to the commissioners, and everybody will get their sheets, hopefully fill them out, get them back to us, and then we'll start filling them in.
Yeah, you always cross your fingers and hopefully we get those sheets
Right.
back. Anything else,
But-
Bill?
What's gonna happen here, if this is what you decide that you wanna adopt tonight, then we're gonna have to work quickly to negotiate with the town to get this written into the contract and have everybody sign the documents, because as of December 31st, if a document's not signed, then there is no protection for the town.
So that means we have
And
2 working
And
days.
that really is the most important thing.
And of course, it's subject to our
Yeah.
village attorney's approval and everything else.
It should be relatively easy, because we both have the same attorney, so. All he has to do is move it from one side of his desk to the other.
You got a different hat, represent the other point. All right. Anything else? Sure. Elaine, anything else? All right. I regret that Tom and Bob are not here tonight to be involved in the discussion, but it's beyond their control that they can't be here. So.
I talked with Bob O'Neill about this idea today, and he was accepting of it. That was a good approach.
Very good. Yeah. If this is agreeable to the 3 of us here, we have a quorum. Somebody can make a motion and second it.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion by Trustee Cyril Manor to, just for the records, to Cyril, just verbalize your motion, please.
Yeah, that we will accept the fire contract from Township of Hamilton in the amount of $12,000 to provide fire protection as we have in the past, for the amount of $12,000. And the dates are fiscal year, January 1 through December 31st of '89.
Okay.
Did you
But-
want to include in your motion
And
that
with-
these amendments?
with the amendments and
The
changes.
amendments that Bill read, yeah, the amendments.
Okay, and I think, Mary, you have a copy of these things here. This is what we are approving. Should we read this one more time, Mary, or
All as well, actually, Bill read it.
Bill has? Okay, that's enough for the record, for record
I'll put
keeping.
as per agreement, but as addendums added per agreement.
As Henry looks at this, he may want to make a couple of word changes here and there to put it in legalese.
Okay, but the gist is that it's going to be $12,000 for calendar year '89, all right?
Town fiscal year, 89.
Town fiscal year '89, calendar year '89, and also we have to negotiate. The town and the village have to negotiate the new contract for 1990 before
Well,
we
yeah.
adopt our budget for the 1989-1990 fiscal year.
Right.
In just that's about it, and then Henry might change a few words to make these legalese. Anything else that?
The town wants to move quickly on this, I think we do too. And, I'll just take this to Henry and say, Henry, this is the changes that we want to make in the contract, and I'll explain to him our reasoning tonight. And he'll have to, of course, take it back to the board and get Leo's signature on it, and get the town to approve it. Hopefully they will, and we won't run into any snags.
Okay. There's still the motion.
We're running out of time.
There's still the motion on the floor by Trustee Manor. We need a second for that, please.
I will second it.
Seconded by Trustee Elaine Dupra. Okay, any further discussion about this motion? No further discussion. Let's do a roll call vote. Trustee Bob O'Neill is not here. Trustee Tom Batha is not here. Trustee Cyril Manor.
Aye.
Trustee Elaine Dupra.
Aye.
And the mayor votes aye too. So this is approved. So, Mr. Way, we advise you to do the best you can and expedite this matter. And hopefully we can have a contract with the town before the end of this year.
2 days.
2 days.
We can move miracles.
And by the time the viewers are watching this program too on Channel 21. Okay, that's second item of the agenda. Anything else on the agenda for it? Nothing else. I just want to wish everybody here present a happy New Year and hope that we have a more peaceful New Year for the village board next year. Thank you very much. Need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Elaine Dupra to adjourn.